This is my monstera deliciosa, and it is huge, so it's kind of difficult, if not impossible, to get the plant and me in the same photo frame, so this is gonna have to suffice. Today I'm talking about how I keep this plant healthy and happy, and I hope you can gain a thing or two about how to keep your monstera deliciosa healthy and happy. Hello, my name is Balisa. Welcome to Plants and Things, where we talk about plants and things. So, as I start all of my plant care videos, and it's so crazy to me that I have plant care videos with an S, but that is a side note. As I start all of these videos, I do want to say that the most important ingredient to keeping your plants healthy and happy is your God-given curiosity. Be curious about your plant. If you try something and it doesn't work, stop doing it. Or if you've been doing something and somebody on the internet tells you not to do it and it actually works for your plant and your plant loves it, keep on doing it. So let's get into the actual plant care. Firstly, I'm going to start with the watering of this plant, and that is because the crispy ends of this plant are staring me in the face and shaming me, because there was a point when this plant was actually being underwatered, and I can tell that because the plant has these crispy ends. So if the ends of your monstera deliciosa leaves are crisping, it's because you're probably underwatering the plant. So the newest leaves though, the newest leaves have no crisping on them, which shows that I did improve, and now I'm actually sufficiently watering the plants. This is kind of like one of my favorite leaves, but that's a side note. So how I water the plant is that I drench the plant. I've mentioned this before, that I like to have deep catch pots so that I leave some water in the catch pot, which will get like sucked up into the soil as time goes by. So that's how I water this plant, and it doesn't mind. There are plants that hate like being wet all the time, whereas this is a plant that I've found generally loves that, because I'm just thinking it more minds getting dry, and so I would rather, fill up the catch pot, and then when that's dry, like when the catch pot is dry, is when I know I need to re-water the plant. So that's how I've kept the watering. And speaking of watering, because I usually, not in winter anymore, I fertilize by mixing the fertilizer in with the water, and that's something I like to do I've mentioned, generally I have the same fertilizing routine for all my plants, except my anthurium. My anthurium is much more fussy than the rest of the plants, but in the spring and summer months, I dilute as instructed. I dilute the fertilizer as instructed, and I water the plant with the fertilizer, and I do that usually every week or every 2 weeks, and the plants seem to love it. And the reason why I've stopped, so previously I also used to fertilize in the winter, and this was the year where I decided to stop, because the soil has these white things on it, which I am convinced are from the fertilizer, and I will do a close-up of the white stuff on top of the soil. That's when I realized that this plant doesn't need fertilizing, and this winter the plant didn't do any growing, and that's most likely because I did, again, I have a video of it. I repotted this plant pretty late in the autumn, I think, and so I think it was more working on growing new roots, so it didn't actually pop out any new leaves. But I think in the previous winter it was popping out leaves like crazy, but still less so. So like crazy is actually a lie. I'm lying. I am lying. It wasn't like crazy, because it really grows. Like when it is growing, it grows. So it was probably popping out like a leaf a month or every second month during the autumn and winter months. So I just let the plant go into dormancy and take a chill and take a break during the winter. So I do not fertilize in the winter. I do not think it causes the plant any harm, but I could be wrong. And in terms of humidity, I keep my plant in normal room humidity. I was going to say normal room temperature, that too, and it hasn't given a fuss, and it's growing pretty well. I do want to say a side note, I don't think extra humidity will harm the plant. So if that's something like, if you have a place where there is extra humidity and you want to put the plant, I don't think the plant will, yeah, because it's not a desert plant, so I don't think it'll do it any harm. But I keep mine in normal room humidity and it's been having a good time, so that's where it's going to continue being kept. In terms of lighting, this plant does enjoy a bright sunny room, but I did read somewhere that the plant does not like direct sunlight on its leaves. It does get some direct sunlight on its leaves, I'll admit, but it is about 3 meters away from like a big sunny window, and it gets afternoon sunlight, and it's quite happy, and the leaves are quite big and beautiful, as the plant is big and beautiful. So it's definitely not a low light plant, but I think you could place it anywhere in a sunny room. I have seen places where they've kept it in dark rooms and the leaves do get smaller and smaller. And so if that's happening with your plant, maybe consider moving it to a sunny spot, because these plant leaves are really, really big. It is important to wipe them down when dust accumulates. And I do try to keep on top of that, not as well as I probably should, but I do it often-ish enough. And I can see that there is dust accumulating on some of the leaves now. This one in particular, which also feels a wee bit flimsy. I don't know why. So how I wipe my plants is by using a spoon of vinegar with a cup of warm water, and then I just take a normal sponge and I wipe it down, and that prevents dust accumulation, possible insect, gives you time to inspect your plant, because in nature, when the plant's naturally occurring, there is rain, which does that job of washing everything down, and unfortunately houseplants don't have that. What I've seen other people do is that they put the plants in a shower and shower them down. That is too messy for me, because then you have to wipe. I would just rather wipe the plant. Perhaps when the plant gets more leaves, it might feel like a bigger job, but I don't think so, because I think taking it to the shower feels like an extreme, that feels too extreme, like a job. Like, oof, that feels like a bigger job to me. So I will continue doing my wipe down, and it's actually kind of fun when I get to it. I'm like, why did you take so long to get to it? But yes, definitely wipe down your plant's leaves. I think I just tore it a bit on like a brown spot. Wipe them down. I've heard that it also helps the photosynthesis I've heard that it helps the photosynthesis process, because then there's no barrier, for the sun and stuff to get in. I don't know how true that is, but it does make sense. Like that, the larger surface area would mean more sun coming in. But yeah, take that with a pinch of salt. I do still think it is best to wipe your plant's leaves down. Lastly, I'm going to talk about the stakes on this plant. And this one is a recently added one. So because basically the plant can face only in like three quarters of a circle, sort of. I hope that makes sense. There's like a wall behind the plant. I train up the leaves to look in a particular direction, and I do that using the stakes. Like this one is the most recently staked one, and using these green plant ties, and that's really helped. Also, it also helps to, like, for aesthetics, to fill out spaces that might have no plants in them. And so now I have 3 for all the directions. I do have 3 plants in here, which might really not be like the best idea once the plant starts to take off. But I did want to have a more juvenile form of the plant. I think I like the contrast between the smaller leaves and their bigger leaves is something that is really pretty to me. So yeah, that's what I use stakes to train up the plants, so that they face in particular directions and are not all sitting on top of each other, which can happen because they're growing haphazardly. But yeah, it's a definite necessity. I would definitely recommend getting stakes for your plants. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. You can just get these at a garden center and then put them, and then yeah, you definitely need I think it's called plant, it's like a Velcro. That is the word. So it's a plant Velcro situation. And then once you've trained the plant and it hardens off in a particular place, then it basically stays that way. So yeah, that is definitely something I recommend for this plant. All that being said, this is definitely one of my favorite plants. I still regret cutting it, which is probably something I'll regret forever. But yeah, it's an absolute joy to grow this plant. It is like, there's this website where I love shopping for plants. I'm not really shopping for plants, but it's a gorgeous, gorgeous website. And they do have plants that are instant jungle vibe. And I think this is an instant jungle vibe type of plant. I know people want to go straight usually to the mature form of plants, but I think even the juvenile forms of this plant, like the juvenile leaf forms of this plant, are absolutely gorgeous. And I think having them both together and seeing it grow more and more is like rewarding. I was gonna say thrilling, which that too, but also really rewarding. So, and I think now my plant is getting into still the like having more fenestrations. I think the most fenestrations, or like, sorry, fenestrations are the cuts, but it's now getting the dots, and then it gets more dots. So we're there now, and that's pretty cute. So I never know what's gonna happen with each new leaf, which is also really darling. At a point, I did like get a cutting of the mature leaf because I was so obsessed with that. But then I realized I like this. It's more like a chubby baby type of thing. And so yeah, I do like this not mature form, but not juvenile form either. That is it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Like the video if you enjoyed it, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already. And I will see you next time. Bye.